Guys, we are
인공장
G. The purpose of today's presentation is to show how we develop AlphaShogi program. We are going to divide our presentation into four main parts. Firstly, I'm going to explain the motivation for selecting a topic. Second, Monte Carlo tree search will be explained, and then focus will be moved to neural network. Lastly, the conclusion of this topic will be described. First of all, many of you will know the name AlphaGo, but the AlphaGo Zero version may be unfamiliar. AlphaGo Zero is a program where AlphaGo develops and runs itself through reinforcement learning. We became interested in this, and in order to apply and explore this algorithm of AlphaGo Zero, we decided to write our own algorithm based on Korean Shogi instead of Go.
I'm going to explain about Monte Carlo tree search, which is also known as MCTS. MCTS consists of 4 steps: to select, to expand, to evaluate, and to backpropagate. Monte Carlo tree search uses tree structure, and every node represents specific state of the game. And it also has 4 attributes: W, N, P, and Q. W is the total value, and N is the number of digits, P is the probability to chosen, and Q is the mean value. Now let's look into how MCTS works. Firstly, MCTS follows the way which maximizes Q plus U until it reaches the end of the tree. And U is the presented mathematical notation. Then possible next moves from the leaf node is added. Then neural network evaluates the leaf node and it outputs P, the possibilities of possible next moves, and V, the value of the current state. Then it backpropagates its value to the top. Then the next move is selected depending on N.
Our neural network consists of one convolutional layer, 4 residual layers, value head, and policy head. When input enters, value and policy are returned from value head and policy head. So, what is the residual layer and convolutional layer? In the residual layers, several convolutional layer calculates input and return the function value. Adding function value and input return the new output. The key point of residual layer is skipping layer for preventing overfitting. Convolutional layer multiplies and sums input and filters as shown in the figure here, and return the new output. Also, with some paddings, we can prevent that the data shape is changing. So, as we use this MCTS algorithm and deep neural network, we can make these projects. We think this algorithm can be used not only in game but also in social problems.
Lastly, I will tell you conclusion. First, these are the models we created to make AlphaZero. This is a play scene of AlphaZero. These 2 graphs show that the more AlphaZero learns, the higher the value accuracy and the policy accuracy become. We are able to develop an AI player that recognizes the situation on its own and determines the number without human intervention. We learned more about Monte Carlo tree search, convolutional neural network, and reinforcement learning. And it was a good experience to make AI by using them. Of course, it was very hard because errors occurred frequently and because it was not easy to identify the causes. But it was a good experience to improve our coding ability. We'd like to compliment an AI player and add more unique rules of Korean Shogi that we ignored. That's the end of the presentation. Thank you.
Hello guys, we are going to deliver some presentation about the gravity assist navigation. We are team Pomosh Gravitazi and my name is Juno Park.
My name is Koyok Kam.
My name is Kyun Kim.
My name is Kanghyun Kim.
So, why we started the research? Since 1900s, there's a lot of race going on between countries such as United States, and Russia. However, they still didn't quite reach past the solar system because of the lack of speed. The minimum speed to escape the solar system is about 42 kilometers per second, which is a lot of speed. Because there's a limitation to reach this speed by physically accelerating the spaceship, the professionals discovered the phenomenon called gravity-assisted navigation, which is utilizing the gravity of celestial body to accelerate it. Now we are going to share some basic information that might help you guys to understand our presentation better. First one is the gravity. We all know what gravity is, right? Because we always live every day with gravity. To be more specific, gravity means the force that takes effect between two or more objects. The formula for it is like this.
Cosmic velocities are divided into three categories. The first cosmic velocity is the speed at which the object can orbit the Earth, which is about 7.9 km per second. If the spacecraft is launched at a speed of less than 7.9 km per second, it would move away from the orbit and eventually it would crash into the Earth. However, when launched at a speed of 7.9 km per second, it would orbit the Earth. The second cosmic velocity is the speed at which the object can escape the Earth, which is about 11.2 km per second. When we threw the ball to the sky, it goes up high to the sky, but eventually it would fall. In contrast, when we launch the spacecraft a speed of 11.2 km per second, it would escape the Earth. The third cosmic velocity is the speed at which the object can escape the solar system, which is about 16.7 km per second. However, this value of 16.7 only applies when the spacecraft is launched in a direction of the Earth's revolution. If not, the third cosmic velocity is increased to a maximum of 42.1 km per second. When an object has sufficient mass, it becomes a black hole, and the maximum radius of the black hole is called the Schwarzschild radius. These two formulas show us how much gravity the black hole has. Gravity-assisted navigation is a way to accelerate spaceship utilizing orbital speed of celestial body. I'm going to tell you how to use speed of celestial body. When spaceship enters the gravity field from behind the celestial body's orbit, the combined speed of spaceship is a sum of orbital speed and traveling speed of spaceship. If you find the sum of the velocities in vector, you can see the combined speed of spaceship is maximized when direction of celestial body and spaceship match. As spaceship speeds up by this process, celestial body slows down, which can be explained by the law of conservation of momentum. It shows that the slowing down amount of celestial body is very small. There's a similar way to get energy from black hole. Not all black holes are possible, but only black holes with angular momentum. Assuming an object is divided in half at black hole's ergosphere, then half of the object falls into a black hole, reducing an angular momentum of black hole. According to the law of conservation of momentum, the other half of the object get more energy and escape from the black hole.
This simulator allows you to set the size and the initial velocity of the celestial body by clicking and dragging the mouse. After recording this video, we analyzed the motion of the two celestial bodies using the video analysis function of the Logo Pro program. We used this data to calculate velocity, and it came out as follows. The graph on the left shows the velocity of small celestial body, and the right side, the larger one. The velocity of small one increased, while the velocity of larger one tended to decrease. But there is a considerable variation in velocity because of the difference in mass. According to the law of conservation of momentum, the larger one is about 5 times heavier than the small one.
So that is pretty much gonna be a wrap for this presentation. Today we researched about the gravity-assisted navigation, which is used for human space exploration. And we also researched cosmic velocity to find out why gravity-assisted navigation is needed and find out how it works by using the cosine law and the sum of vectors. Then we calculated the change between celestial body and spaceship by utilizing the conservation of momentum. And we also built the simulator to calculate the mass ratio between two objects by utilizing the speed change. From this research, we were able to expand our knowledge about the things that we learned from the school and also about the different concept. Thank you for listening our speech and have a good afternoon and good night. Thank you. Bye.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. We are Team 고독한 바라. My name is Hyunwoo Kim.
and Sang-Hui-An.
Are you all satisfied with the current English education system? As we live in Korea and learn English for a long time, we notice that there are some problems at current Korean English education. So, the topic of our presentation is the development, problems, and solutions of the Korean English education. First of all, we're going to talk about development of Korean English education. Korea began English education after the trade treaty with the United States, which was signed in 1882. At the late period of Joseon, English became a stepping stone for advancement of one's career. And also, English education, which was originally set up by American missionaries, had created a framework for the starting Korean English education.
At Japanese colonial era, Japanese English teacher taught English in grammar and translation, which served as an opportunity to settle in early English education after independence. Around 1920, higher education institutions included English in entrance examination, mainly presenting questions on translation of words and short sentences. As a result, English education was taught as a tool for advanced school entrance exam.
There were 7 revisions in curriculum of Korean English education. Among them, the third curriculum revision provided a reason for English classes to become grammar-based classes and continue to these days. Although the need for English for communication emerged greatly during the hosting of Seoul Olympics, grammar-oriented education was still implemented due to the environment focused on college entrance exams. In 6th curriculum revision, communication-oriented English education was revised, and from 1994, listening examination in English field of college scholastic ability test was officially introduced.
Next, we are going to introduce the problem of Korean English education. To be able to communicate, you need 2,500 hours if you take 1 to 2 hours a week. However, in the 7th revision, the total of classes was 731 hours for 10 years. So, there is a lack of learning time for communication skills.
Also, the number of words Americans use to communicate is approximately 10,000 words. In Korea, students are required to learn about 3,000 words for 10 years. So, the amount of vocabulary to understand English is absolutely insufficient. Moreover, exam English is also English, so if you learn it, your English will likely improve. However, exam English will compel you to forgive normal English education by forcing you to repeatedly practice only the language elements, skills, and forms expected to be tested. We asked English teachers at Daegi High School, Mr. Ko and Ms. Kim, about our topic. As you can see, they have mentioned that current English education have some problems, and those are related to weak non-reading ability.
Lastly, we're going to talk about 3 solutions about the problems of the Korean English education. English education should be focused on intellectual and human development rather than linguistic tools and means. It's meaningful that English education is not just for a tool for college entrance exams, but for a stepping stone for a self-expansion, such as one's own thinking and insight.
Also, listening should be important for English education. If you look at the order of mother tongue acquisition, you will in the order of listening, speaking, reading, and writing. If you listen a lot, you will be able to speak naturally. Moreover, it is essential to make studying English easy and enjoyable and learn English pronunciation perfectly. According to survey, if you started learning English easily and interestingly, especially by focusing more on English pronunciation, you will be able to speak English well enough for international activities.
To short, if English becomes a subject for itself, which is out of practical use, or a means for entering advanced schools, the learner's English skills will be socially criticized for extremely being poor and lead to huge loss for individuals and nations. Thus, education authorities must lead improvements and actively respond to changes. I'd like to thank you for your time and attention today.
Hello everyone, we are Onko. I'm Sungwan.
I'm Kyungho.
I'm Haesung.
Today we will tell you explanation of how can we improve online classes. First is plot motif. As online classes have been carried out for the first time, there must be drawbacks. To find ways to proceed online classes more effectively, we wanted to analyze the inconvenience that students felt while taking online classes and the impact of online classes on students. And we thought that online classes might be the way to progress towards future education, so we also looked for desirable future education method. And then we took 6 steps while exploring. First, to find out drawbacks of online classes, we conducted student survey and had an interview with a teacher. And to compare with recording classes with real-time interactive classes, we had an interview with a student. Finally, we thought about effective online classes method and desirable future education method.
We conducted surveys for 57 students of Daegi School about the 2 types. First, drawback of online classes. About 60% of the respondents said the biggest drawback of online classes was doing other things, tired by electronic devices, quality reduction, and unable to ask follow sequentially. Second, initiative for online classes. About 50% of the respondents said that they heard online classes less heard. Doing other things seems to be a big cause. In addition, it seems that the motivation for learning has been reduced due to fatigue and reduction of class quality. Next, we interviewed the teacher. About drawback of online classes, the teacher said, "We cannot check each student and cannot give feedback immediately." Our second question was, what needs to be improved and what needs to be supported? The teacher said, since we are burdened with time and money to film and edit our own lectures, we need a system where online classes would be uploaded as soon as we film. And then we interviewed the students who took real-time interactive classes. The students answered, "I felt like I was taking offline classes because I could communicate with teachers through comments and I was very satisfied. It seems like to have advantage of both offline classes and recording classes."
Through surveys and interviews, we found out online classes disadvantage. How can you overcome this? First, the biggest drawback of online classes is that students do other things and become less active in classes. To overcome this, a technical foundation must be established to check students' concentration in classes. Also, schools should identify each student's self-regulating ability and conduct differentiated classes accordingly. Second, to remove fatigue caused by electronic devices, technology to prevent health problems is needed. Third, to resolve quality reduction, a system should be established that allows teachers to film lectures and upload them right away. Fourth, communication cutoff problem will be solved if real-time interactive classes are used. Do you think online classes will become perfect as long as we solve all these problems? Rather, online classes will become effective if teachers adjust various types of classes properly according to the circumstance, not sticking to only one class type. For example, when lecture classes are needed, teachers can utilize recording classes. When feedback between teachers and students is required, teachers can do real-time interactive classes. When students need to cooperate or compete with other students, offline classes can be applied. Finally, what is desirable future education method? In our opinion, if the high school credit system is implemented with online classes, students will not only be guaranteed their own choice of subjects, but also be able to take classes at their own pace. So, the education can be adjusted to its students' property. Isn't it wonderful? Thank you for listening.
Hello guys, our team name is
민재야!
민재야!
집중해!
We will present the topic we have studied from now on. The topic is the influence of the infectious diseases on the national economy. These three pictures show the background of our study. The outbreak of corona in Korea was discovered in January this year. Moreover, the corona spread worldwide and it caused a heavy blow to Korean economy. So we studied this topic to find out how the corona and other epidemics affected the national economy and people's livelihoods. There are 4 diseases to be addressed in our study. Those are SARS, swine flu, MERS, and COVID-19.
I will introduce about SARS. The disease first broke out in China in November 2002. According to the WHO, the mutation of a type of coronavirus caused the pathogen of SARS. SARS has had many adverse effects on the economy, GDP, export, and tourism. Korea's GDP decreased to 1.1, minus 0.7, minus 0.2 percent point from June 2002 to June 2003, and the export rate dropped from 20% in January to April 2003 to 3.5% in May. And in May 2003, SARS caused a 39.4% drop in a proportion of tourists, causing 2 to 3 billion damage and a decrease in employment for 89,000 to 119,000 people.
The swine flu was caused by type A virus. It was studied in California, US, and the first Korean confirmed case was in May 2009. Because of swine flu, the number of tourists visiting Korea dropped for 3 months, and from April to May 2009, the percentage of decrease was 16.6%. The MERS was caused by MERS coronavirus. It was studied in Middle East, and the first Korean confirmed case was in May 2015. Because of MERS, retail sales in June 2015 fell from May 2015, and it caused a decrease of growth rate from 0.9% in first quarter to 0.2% in second quarter in 2015. Also, the number of tourists visiting Korea was decreased in June and July 2015 compared to the previous year.
COVID-19 was first studied in Wuhan, China in December 2019, and the first confirmed case in Korea came out on January 20, 2020. There are still confirmed cases and deaths worldwide. COVID-19 has had a lot of impact on the economy. The number of self-employed people decreased by 127,000 as of July 2020 compared to 2019. It was down 2.2% from the previous year. Among them, the number of self-employed people with employees fell 11.5% from the previous year. In particular, the number of tourists visiting Korea was 410,000 in May 2019, but only 179 in May this year.
In conclusion, according to our team's research, when we compared SARS and COVID-19, we found COVID-19 caused more extensive economic damage. However, the research of survey showed that the economic damage was severe compared to those confirmed for SARS in Korea. We thought that external trade and economic epidemic has an organic relationship because we had to think about the economic damage not only in our country but also in other countries. Our team originally wanted to find out the impact of infectious diseases on economy, on social system, and people's lifestyles. It is regrettable, however, that the government has only looked at the impact of economy, as there is not enough data in the rest of the parts except the economy. Thank you for listening.